Hello. Hello. That's me right there. I'm Richard Chance, an illustrator and gift maker. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. I lived here my whole life. Um, I'm gonna give an overview of my drawing style and how it came to be, basically. Then I'll talk about a specific project that I worked on in the past and show examples of the process from the creative brief to the drawing. I'll start from it's the GIF. I'll start from the beginning. Um, when I was young, I spent majority of the time inside, watching TV and playing video games. When watching TV, I watched TV shows that like the news tell you, "Hey, don't let your kids watch this type of stuff." Like that's all I watched, basically. Um, when I wasn't watching TV, I was reading comic strips and drawing. A decent amount of comics I was exposed to were from the weekly Sunday newspaper. When I got older, I gained access to the internet, and I discovered underground comics and read the available comics that were online. Also to mention the occasional Mad magazine. They all have like elements of humor in it. So I went to a school in downtown Brooklyn called New York City College of Technology. I wanted to study computer information systems, but I had bad grades, so I just switched over to graphic design. These are the drawings I did in college. Yeah. Illustration classes were a little bit later. It was like around 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So I would stay in the lounge and just draw people, basically, whoever was in the lounge. Yeah. I drew a lot of people. Um, yeah, this was like web design class. That's why I was like failing. So after graduating, I worked at like a few places as a graphic designer. I did a lot of like beer posters and like basically took information and put it into graphs and stuff like that. But I still wanted to be an illustrator. Um, so in 2016, I was really into 80s pop music. I was one of those people that was like, "Oh my God, I was born in the wrong era." And that was me right there. Like I said that out loud, not on the internet. Like in real life, I said that. So I came across something that was like a mix between music and the visual arts, and vaporwave was it basically. If you don't know anything about vaporwave, vaporwave is a micro genre of electronic music, visual art style. It chops and screws old music, but in particular, it was 80s music that I was really into. And because of the 80s music, I start to like experiment with airbrushed style. Then I start experimenting with my own illustrations. The first one you see is like Barnacle Boy. Oh, no, it's Mermaid Man, then Barnacle Boy. Heartbreak Kid HBK. If you're a wrestling fan, you know who that is. I was getting a few jobs with my older style, the pen and ink style. The only problem was that like it takes a long time to like make the drawing line by line. They got to pull out the tissue paper. It was like too much of a hassle. So I started to integrate the two styles together. So I went from something like this to something like this, and this to this. I started to play around more and created more drawings that favored the style best. I was moving very quickly in comparison to the older style. So I started to animate the images because I had much more time to draw. So they just became more and more complex throughout the time. I created a series of like music gifs. So it was way more gifs than this, but these are just like the ones that I want to pull up. Big Sean, you got like Rihanna, It's Raining. She has no umbrella this time. And Haim. I love Haim. I thought they were like triplets, but I realized they're not triplets. I uploaded all these like GIFs onto Giphy, and I was like commissioned by Giphy to create a series of GIFs. The concept of the GIFs was, it was a midday at work of an office environment. I'm going to show you it now. This is the GIF. Okay, like part 2. And the last one. Yeah, it was way more like crazier than that. They had to change me. It was like, no, you can't do all that. But funny enough, it was featured on his nightstat way back, and that kind of led to a lot more like editorial work. So I did a lot of work for Splice, Baffler, Bloomberg, Business Week, New York Times, and WeTransfer. And because of that, a lot of the illustrations had a concept behind it. So it wasn't just purely the style in itself, the vaporwave, pink, colorful stuff. At some point, I worked at a company called Refinery 29 for 2.5 years in-house. So a lot of the illustration that I do recently or anything past this point had this similar color palette. It was much more bright and saturated. Even the subjects was like way different. I usually don't like draw illustrations that's based off of like, I don't know how to explain it. Moisturizing your face, loving your hair. I don't draw stuff like that usually. But over time, I took the color and the palette and the way how I communicated said illustration and brought it into my actual personal style. And over time, the style just slowly over time started to like develop. The audience and the publications had like different audiences, so I had to like accommodate the illustrations to them. Not all of it has to be humorous, but when they are humorous, those are my favorite drawings to do. Yeah. Oh, now is the process. So you kind of see the style in itself. The process usually is like super quick because a lot of the editorial stuff is super quick. First I get the brief, then I read it, then I write some words, and then I doodle, then sketch, then refine to final. So I'm going to give you like a quick overview of like the tone of how I kind of solve illustration problems, if that makes sense. So I'm going to start showing you like headlines and then how my ex owes me $4,700 and I can't stop thinking about how to get him back. So I drew a dude that was like a scarecrow that like ran off with the money. Yeah, she looks pissed, you know? Many people have a vivid mind's eye, while others have none at all. So I drew a couple. Like one has like a good memory of the situation, the other one just doesn't remember. Silicon Valley, very masculineer. So I drew like a nerd, turn into like the Incredible Chad, you know? It will work itself out. It actually won't. So I drew like a guy that's like got a lot of bills that's coming out his head. Yeah, like Mondays, you know. But I'm gonna like focus on a particular article. Simone Biles, an Olympic award-winning athlete. The title of the article was "No Baby Unicorns." No baby unicorns. Why you'll never understand a black woman's decision if you don't understand her history. In short, the article was inspired by Simone Biles' interview that offered a ton of context leading up to the decision to sit out the 2020 Olympics. It touches on her mental hurdles that are involved succeeding as. Sorry. It touches on the mental hurdles that involves in succeeding as a black woman in that profession. It's a bit hard to like turn that like title and that subject into something like humorous, but I can use elements of humor and exaggerate certain things and recontextualize certain things to kind of tell the story. But the main idea was to come up with an idea that was like mainly focused on isolation and how she was feeling or being weighed down by the pressure. Yeah, these are the sketches I sent to the art director. They focused on this one. Yeah, I like this one too. They offered, hey, we should animate it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah. So I animated it. A lot of like drips and arms shaking. Kind of gives a lot of that, it goes back to the central idea of like her weighing down, her being isolated. The art director offers like, hey, we should like fix her face. And it did fix her face, like she looks really happy. But it actually also like makes the idea way more stronger because like she has this mask on her face, like she's very serious, like very happy, but she's like in turmoil. So I made it more refined, and then I colored her face. This is Simone Biles. It's a cool idea, right? So at some point I animated it. This is what it looks like inside of Photoshop. And this is the final. Yeah. And this is like the article. Yeah, just repeat it. I don't know why I didn't have the other piece. But yeah, so it's kind of like the overview of how I kind of get from point A to point B, how I like take a title and bring it to its like creative conclusion. That's a quick overview of like 8 years of like exploring my style and humor to like portray an idea to an audience. Thanks.